Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Littlewargame, and welcome to Jade Waddy. Today, I am bringing you a really cool match between myself in the bottom right, SlammerIV, and in the top left, we have Aicy in the red. And this was a very neat beast versus beast that I played a little while ago that I wanted to bring to you guys. A build that has been getting pretty popular lately. I've been playing it quite a bit, and I see that Aicy also actually has been bringing this one out. I believe he brought it out in the tournament at least once or twice. But anyway, the build is the 2-den, and it is the macro 2-den. It is the defensive macro 2-den. This is a very flexible build, perhaps one of the most flexible builds in the game right now. It can be aggressive, it can be defensive, it can stop cheeses, but it can be a cheese itself. Now, it's not the best offensive cheese in the game. Really, it takes a while for the wolves to run across the map, and of course, wolves themselves are not the most devastating units in the game. So while they can defeat things like Castle First on certain maps, because of the defensive posture of the den, it's actually not the most dangerous build. I like to play it in a very macro style. So one thing you'll kind of notice in this game is I like to mix in a lot of workers with this build. And I like to kind of always be leaning towards an expansion. Like, my plan is always to take an expansion. Oftentimes I'll take it off of 2 house if I don't get much damage done with my first wolves. In this game, it's a 2-den versus 2-den, so you're kind of forced to get a lot of units, really. And you can't mess your control up too much. But you'll see that I have 3 extra workers compared to Aicy, but I'm down 2 wolves. So I've kind of cut wolf production in order to get more workers. Now, good micro from me already here. I've actually picked off a wolf for free, so already I'm at a bit of an advantage. However, I do mess things up with this wolf, so I lose this one. Actually, I lose 2 wolves here, so that advantage that I had initially, I kind of fritter away. I don't think I counted the wolves correctly. You really shouldn't be taking too many fights if you're down wolf. I could have got that 1 kill and pulled back. I was assuming I had the same wolf count because we were going for the same build, but I hadn't realized that I was actually cutting a little bit of wolf to get the higher wolf count out. You can see that he's actually used that extra supply of workers to make more wolves. Although I will say that a bit of poor macro from Aicy here. He's sitting at... Oh, actually, never mind. I was going to say his macro was poor, but actually he's decided to expand off of 2 house, which is the thing I was telling you guys about. You can expand off 2 house here and do quite well with it. I'm taking this fight, but again, my wolf counting skills were poor because he's up 2 wolves, so I really shouldn't be taking that engagement. I soon realized that, yeah, it's time to go. I get a snake charmer and another house, so I've gone for a tech and more of a committed play. Not realizing that he's going for the castle. I think technically this is probably the right play for me because I am getting workers out, so I know my army is smaller, and I've kind of identified that his army is bigger than mine, and because of that I know I have to kind of be defensive against really dedicated wolf pressure. Now, he's not doing a dedicated wolf pressure because he's decided to get the expansion instead, but I can't know that, so I need to get the snake charmer out and defend myself. Now, I do clean up his army. I think I traded slightly better there, but not by any significant margin. However, I'm at 14 workers to 9, so my economy is still better. I don't have a third base up, but really he's not really mining yet from this base. So if we look at the income tab, you can see I've mined about 300 gold more than my opponent at this stage in the game, and we've traded about equally in units. So you can think that's basically an expansion more that I have to play around with because I've invested in these extra workers. And once I get my expansion up, which I'm going to be doing in just a second here, once I get my expansion up, I will be mining way more than him because I will just have a greater worker count. You can see that Aicy is still stuck at 9, which I find to be quite questionable play because I think he's feeling like he has to build wolves at this point because I have snake out, which is maybe the correct choice because, yeah, if you don't have snakes yourselves, then wolf snake really dies, or really kills pure wolf, excuse me. And you can even see in this engagement that my snakes are doing a good job pushing him back. I end up being traded out here pretty cleanly. He does defend, but at the same point, I kill a lot of his wolves, so I think it ends up being roughly an equal trade. If we look at the units lost, yeah, you can see it's very close to an equal trade. I actually have lost a little bit more. I think he had a larger wolf army overall. So it's going to be very interesting to keep a tab on that income tab as this continues on. Because again, I invested in an extra house and a snake charmer that Aicy didn't get. Aicy's still only on triple house. I actually have 4 houses, so I got an extra 2 houses before expansion. I believe the 3rd house he added on after. But my expansion is only now completing. But still, looking at the gold mined, I'm still well ahead of him in gold mined, even though my expansion is later. So it seems like I don't really care at this point. I'm still at a pretty healthy economy position. Also looking at the units tab, he's up by a couple wolves, but wolves and snakes make pretty quickly, so usually that's not something that I'm too concerned about, especially since workers take a little bit longer to build. So I think it's better to invest in those workers over time. So Aicy has added on his 3rd den. I'm still sticking to 2 den. The first tech choice I've made here is to go for the animal testing lab. When it's wolf snake knife fights like this, especially at low econ, I think it's often good to get that upgrade rolling instead of trying to go for dragons or something. Dragons take so much time to get into play. I always get concerned that I'm just going to get run over if I go for dragons. Now it looks like Aicy has decided to go for his 3rd base. Interesting, I think I saw this from a Tano Circus recently. He seems to be going for this low worker style where you kind of lean into the efficiency of your first few workers, and so instead of adding more workers, you just add a castle on. So that's an interesting choice from Aicy here. I tend to just kind of focus on the gold mined tab here, and I don't usually like this style and choice. But we're going to see how it works out for Aicy in this game. Looks like he canceled the castle or didn't build the castle because he felt like he had to defend my push here, which my push is doing a pretty good job. I don't have my upgrades yet. That +1 is still quite a ways off. And once I see the tower, I know I have to drop back. Also, 3 den, I know that his production is going to be pretty good. So I realize I have to add a den of my own. One thing that's happened in this game is I don't notice what he's doing across the map. So I've actually got the advanced workshop as a counter, as a preemptive counter to a possible dragon transition. So that's kind of the thought process behind this advanced workshop. It's a pretty large investment as the blind counter. And in retrospect, maybe I shouldn't have gone for it. I should have just been a little bit more aggressive and kind of realized by pressuring how much gold he had possibly invested in dragons. Because I think you probably can identify that just by wolf snake count. In retrospect, maybe I should have done that instead. But the thing that this does allow me to do is put pressure on with a drop. So I send across a small drop of wolf snake. I send four wolves and 2 snakes across the map, which can do some decent damage, even though because of the positions, I'm probably not going to get a massive amount of damage done. So looking at the income tab, you can see I have opened up about an 800 gold advantage. 800 gold is actually quite a lot. That easily pays for my upgrades and anything else I might want in this game. So you can kind of see that even in the fact that he has no upgrade, and his wolf snake count is actually pretty healthy. But I've also added the upgrade and the advanced workshop on kind of behind. So like I have these extra tech units that he just doesn't have, as well as a much better worker count, which is going to continue to pay dividends for me farther and farther into this game. Now, he is moving across with his main wolf snake army, but unfortunately for him, that means he has nothing in position to defend against this drop that I have coming out here. So I now see his workers running, and I imagine his army is very close in, so I decided to quickly right-click on his snake charmer to try to take that out. Meanwhile, he just continues to attack across the map. This is where you're going to see my upgrade advantage, I think, take a large effect, because I do have +1 on my wolf snake. So even though this army is significantly larger than his, it actually trades. So the initial trade actually goes fairly evenly for me. Now, I realize I have to pull workers here, because this is so much wolf snake. But once again, I'm doing damage behind, so I kind of don't mind taking this trade, because I know I've done damage behind on the backside. And I know from scouting that his worker count at his third base isn't so good, and he's not mining from his main base, so I kind of feel pretty okay to just pull workers and even lose some workers in this situation. I lose track of his army for a second here, and Aicy decides to dive into my third base. His snakes do great execution, picking off maybe 1 to 2 workers in this fight. However, I now have +1 snake against +0 snake, and I'm able to really utilize this attack upgrade advantage here with this long drawn-off snake engagement, which slowly tends towards my favor as more of my units filter in. This fight actually is still going on, and I believe I actually got some good kill and good trade in again with my upgrade advantage. Meanwhile, +2 finishes on my, or actually +1/1 finishes on my snake wolf. And now I think Aicy finds himself in a pretty tough situation because he's at 17 workers to 28, which means, looking at the income tab, I've now mined 7,400 to 5,900. So almost a, what is that? 1,600 gold mine advantage, or 600 gold mine advantage. Yeah, 1,600. Really massive, like unbelievably massive amount of gold mined. If you look at the lost tab, he's now lost significantly more than me as well. So I'm able to add on my werewolves, which is the next important tech you need in this matchup. I get a double drop going, and I add on a couple more wolf snake dens just to keep adding on those supplies. You can see the supply is going to really start bumping up for me here. Aicy is kind of continuing this style of low worker counts and lots of expansions. So he tries to get this 4th base up and continue to expand to it. However, he's pretty significantly behind at this point in almost every possible metric you could have in this game. So it's a little bit ambitious to get this 4th base up. Really what he needs is that upgrade. You can see he's getting the testing lab now, but it's going to be tough to transition to that upgrade at this point. I believe I do have +2 attack coming, yet +2, so I'm going to have 2/1 Snake Wolf in just a second here. And I can kind of tell I'm pretty far ahead in this game because when I scout his base, I see that he has, you know, almost no workers at his main. And I just decide to pull back with my drop here, no problems. Snakes, especially 0 attack snakes, have a trouble dealing with airships. Even a lot of airships really can't do a lot. I just add on my werewolves, continue to add on my 4th base in just a second. My main has now mined out. By the way, you can kind of see the difference in the mining here. I've mined my main out already, and he has 2,000 gold still left in his main, which just means I have so much more gold to work with in this game. I've also decided to add on my fortress, add on the dragon's lair, and I'm just kind of camping with some of my drops here. I finally decided that it's about time to push out. I'm going to be hitting a 2-1 timing, and I see that he has 0-0, so I'm just pretty much YOLOing my units in at this point. This is more of a distraction force because my main damage is going to be done in the main base. I'm going to quickly snipe down the tower and then also the animal testing lab to make sure I continue with my upgrade advantage. And now I'm going to continue to press in with Wolf Snake from the bottom side. And really there's not a whole lot for Aicy to do at this point. His units are so far behind in upgrades. He's down 30 supply, and I even have the major tech advantage because I have werewolves as well. So I kind of wanted to showcase this game just to show off a more aggressive beast versus beast style, and also particularly to focus on how to play a 2-den, in my opinion. You may find yourself in situations where you're playing 2-den against 2-den, and it's sometimes a little questionable, like, okay, what do I do in that scenario, right? How do I play if my opponent are doing mirror things? Do I just lean on wolf play? Do I add snakes? What do I do? So my recommendation is there's a couple things you can do. The first option is just do what I did, which was add a snake thing, add a couple houses, and then slowly get your 3rd base. If you know your opponent's gone 2-den, you know you don't have to rush to get your natural out. You can take your natural fairly later, and as long as you have enough workers to saturate it, your economy is going to be pretty fine. I find with 2 wolf den, you can add a pretty good amount of workers on slowly over time whenever you have spare gold. and that's going to allow you to, I think, have a stronger economy going into the mid game and just overall keep up with opponents who may be expanding faster than you. So that's how I played the macro 2-den. If you want to play a very all-in style, you can actually add a 3rd den and a Snake Charmer and just go ham with it. With that style, you need less workers. I would say maybe cut a little bit more than you normally would and just lean on your wolf play. But I think that's a little less solid than the build that I've showcased here. In general, I don't necessarily approve of the cutting worker technique that Aicy's been going for in these games. If we look at the income tab, I mean, I just mined so much more than him. I fail to see how he really was able to get any advantage from being that far behind in gold mined. That extra gold allowed me to get upgrades, tech, really anything I wanted, and made the game pretty comfortable once I got to that mid-game stage. So hope you guys enjoyed that video. Hope you maybe learned something about that beast versus beast and 2-den versus 2-den matchup. And I will catch you all next time.